And today would be the last day. If you're interested in going to the Highland Games, please let Ron know, because that is next Saturday. And it is, I know I've talked about it a lot, because it's just one of the greatest things that we get to do as a family, and it's just fun. A day of just fun, just going up there and seeing that. Also, wanted to ask everyone, we're trying to update our church directory information because we have, at times we've tried to communicate things through email, but it's like, well, we don't have everything that we need, so we need to update that. So if I could ask everybody, even if you think that we have your correct information, don't assume anything, go ahead and fill out a yellow card today with your name, your address, your telephone number, your email, everything, from your address to your phone number to your email address, if you have one, if you have Facebook, if you have anything like that, just indicate that and put that on your yellow cards and turn that in during our time of worship, and that will be much appreciated as we try to update that. It's really hard to communicate with people when you only see them once a week and you don't have any other contact information with them. So we need to do that. And as Tom has said, that Angie and I met with another insurance agent, and we're talking about the insurance, the cost of the insurance. My insurance has increased significantly from 6.5 years ago when I started here to what it is now. And so we were successfully able to find cheaper, but even better insurance than I had before. So it was, praise God for that. And so that'll be a significant savings for the church, and it'll be better for me and my family, but especially me because I'm the only one in the family who uses the insurance. So, but that's a good thing. And so, as you know, as we look at this, sometimes it's hard when you're thinking, well, the finances of a church or a business or a family, how can one person change that? Well, one person can change significantly and have an impact on it. Even if you don't work, even if you don't have a regular job, I know some people work at Marathon, some people at Cooper, some people work for the city, some people have, the hospital, have really good jobs and make a lot of money. And you may not be one of those people. You might think, well, I can't help much. But you can. You just have to think outside the box. Think of different ways that you can bring in income or people to the church. And it's not all about money. I hate talking about money because every time a pastor does that, they get accused of, well, all you're talking about is money. And it's not about that, but it's about helping the church continue to be Crosspoint. This is a very unique church. There's a lot of churches in Finland. Let's be honest with you. This is the only one like this. This is the only one I go to. Not because I'm a pastor, but because of you all. Okay? So, how do you do that? It could be something as simple as, okay, every one of us needs to be healthy and active, right? So, walking is a very simple thing to do. As you're walking, take the garbage bag and collect cans. Okay, so you're killing two birds with one stone. You're healthy, you're getting healthy, and you're collecting cans that you can recycle and give that money to the church. Okay, something simple like that. Just think outside the box. If you're very good at baking, Barb, as I'm thinking about that, she's, incredible. You could have like a bake sale. You could do so. We could have, as a church, we could have a garage sale here. I know I've got a lot of stuff in my house I got to get rid of. My kids are gone this weekend. I could really clear out their rooms. But, things like that. We may not have to have one big garage sale here, but you can have a garage sale at your house. And part of the proceeds. Let me just tell you the story about something that Angie did when we were dating. We had a garage sale. It was like, we had a lot of stuff that we needed to get rid of and clear out the clutter. And we had this garage sale. And on Saturday, we had a pretty good day. And so Angie said, I want to tithe, from the garage sale. I want to tithe extra to the church from what we did. And I said, okay, cool, that's great. So she did. We had after church, we had the last chance garage sale thing that we did, to do. And at that one, we sold my van. We sold, it was like we got so much more than what we had the day before because she was faithful with that little bit. So I'm not saying that God is going to definitely, I promise you that that's going to happen, but He could, because He does that kind of stuff. Just to say, hey, thank you for being faithful and blessing the church. I'm going to bless you even more. Because God does that. God doesn't just give you back what you give to others. He blesses you manifold blessings. So I just encourage you to think about that. We've been doing a lot of thinking outside the box in terms of, I don't want you to think that the elder team or myself are just sitting back passively going, well, what are we going to do? Geez, this really stinks. Wow. What are we going to do? What are we going to do? We haven't been doing that. We've been going around. I have a list of other site locations and options that we could look into. We've talked to a lot of different people about a lot of different options on this. So we've been doing that. Lynn has been integral in getting a credit card, the ability for us at the fair to have credit cards, taking credit cards. You know how much, I'm thinking that that's going to be a big thing. Because a lot of people come up, oh, I only have a couple of bucks, so I can only get like a kid size. Well, you can take your credit card now, so you can get the diabetic size. So, it's things like that maybe somebody wouldn't want to buy the entire bucket to take home, but now they can. So we've, given them that option. We've, been able to do the card here at church. And eventually we're going to get a little station set up back there where you can do that, because this is the only place I write a check to, that I write a physical check to, because I don't have any other options. So, and it's hard for me to remember that when it's sitting in home and I never use it except for the ones that we take. So, so we're getting that option here, so it's easier for people to do that. So we're looking at different things and trying different things and doing different things that to help out the situation as well. But I just encourage you, I empower you to think outside the box in terms of what you can do and how you can help out in this situation as well. Because every individual matters. Every individual, no matter how small or insignificant you might think the contribution is, every little bit helps. And that's what we need to do. I think Pete's got some extra yellow cards. If you don't have one, just kind of raise your hand and he'll pass those out. Well, okay, good morning. Glad you're here. We had a very successful back-to-school bash yesterday, and I want to thank everyone who contributed to help out in providing the supplies, whether it was pencil boxes, backpacks, hot dogs, buns, and everyone who lent a hand in assembling the backpacks. And that was a fun day, Friday. I think that next year I'm going to suggest we do the assembly of the backpacks here, because it's air conditioned. There, I was there for like 2 minutes before I was soaked in sweat, and I'm like, oh, this is not good. Fat man melting. Yeah, it looked like that was great because it was so hot. But we did that, and we put together over 500 backpacks in less than an hour. So that was amazing. We gave away over 500 backpacks full of supplies, 8 bicycles, several hundred hot dogs, and a whole lot of Jesus' love. So that was the cool thing. We had a great day. Yes, thank you all for whoever helped and whoever prayed. It was an amazing day. We do have some additional backpacks that I want to make available to anyone who has or may need one for any of their child or children. They're in a gray tub out on the bench in the foyer. These are just backpacks. They don't have the supplies in them. But hey, free is free, and it's all good, and they're good backpacks. So if even if it's, that like your neighbor kid might need, hey, this is a way you can do something for them. You can take a backpack and find out what grade they're in, maybe, and put some of the supplies in yourself and give it to your neighbor kid. Or if you have a relative or something, put those backpacks out there. I'm going to leave them out there, and anything that we don't use, we'll use next year. So, okay, so today I want to talk about someone from the Old Testament. And while he is an important figure in Israel's history, he still has some things that we can learn from him today. I don't know that I have ever preached from this book of the Bible here up until today. So our passage is 2 Chronicles chapter 32. So go ahead and find that in the Old Testament. And yeah, the middle of the Old Testament. Yeah, really. And we're going to look at that chapter. And there's a lot to this. It's not terribly long. It's a longer passage than I normally would pick, but the whole story is important here. And we begin in chapter 32, verse 1. After all that Hezekiah had so faithfully done, Sennacherib, king of Assyria, came and invaded Judah. He laid siege to the fortified cities, thinking to conquer them for himself. When Hezekiah saw that Sennacherib had come and that he intended to wage war against Jerusalem, he consulted with his officials and military staff about blocking off the water from the springs outside the city, and they helped him. They gathered a large group of people who blocked all the springs and the stream that flowed through the land. Why should the kings of Assyria come and find plenty of water, they said. Then he worked hard repairing all the broken sections of the wall and building towers on it. He built another wall outside that one and reinforced the terrace of the city of David. He also made large numbers of weapons and shields. He appointed military officers over the people and assembled them before him in the square at the city gate and encouraged them with these words, "Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid or discouraged, because the king of Assyria has a vast army with him. For there is a greater power with us than with him. With him is only the arm of flesh, but with us is the Lord our God, to help us and to fight our battles." And the people gained confidence from what Hezekiah the king of Judah had said. Later, when Sennacherib king of Assyria and all his forces were laying siege to Lachish, he sent his officers to Jerusalem with this message for Hezekiah, king of Judah, and for all the people of Judah who were there. "This is what Sennacherib, king of Assyria says. On what are you basing your confidence that you remain in Jerusalem under siege? When Hezekiah says, 'The Lord our God will save us from the hand of the king of Assyria,' he is misleading you to let you die of thirst and hunger. Did not Hezekiah himself remove his God's high places and altars, saying to Judah and Jerusalem, 'You must worship before one altar and burn sacrifices on it'? Do you not know what I and my predecessors have done to all the peoples of the other lands? Were the gods of those nations ever able to deliver their land from my hand? Who of all the gods of these nations that my predecessors destroyed have been able to save his people from me? How then can your God deliver you from my hand? Now do not let Hezekiah deceive you and mislead you like this. Do not believe him, for no God of any nation or kingdom has been able to deliver his people from my hand or the hand of my predecessors. How much less will your God deliver you from my hand?" Sennacherib's officers spoke further against the Lord God and against his servant Hezekiah. The king wrote letters ridiculing the Lord, the God of Israel, and saying this against him: "Just as the gods of the people of the other lands did not rescue their people from my hand, so the God of Hezekiah will not be able to rescue his people from my hand." And they called out in Hebrew to the people of Jerusalem who were on the wall to terrify them and make them afraid in order to capture the city. They spoke about the God of Jerusalem as they did about the gods of the peoples of the other lands, the work of human hands. Hezekiah and the prophet Isaiah, son of Amos, cried out in prayer to heaven about this. And the Lord sent an angel who annihilated all the fighting men and commanders and officers in the camp of the Assyrian king. So he withdrew to his own land in disgrace. And when he went into the temple of his God, some of his own sons, his own flesh and blood, cut him down with the sword. So the Lord saved Hezekiah and the people of Jerusalem from the hand of Sennacherib, the king of Assyria, and from the hand of all others. He took care of them on every side. Many brought offerings to Jerusalem for the Lord, and valuable gifts for Hezekiah, king of Judah. From then on, he was highly regarded by all the nations. So Hezekiah, King Hezekiah, was face to face with the very definition of adversity. A very powerful foreign king leading a mighty army was set on conquering Jerusalem. Many people would have tried to negotiate with him or thrown up a white flag, but Hezekiah was not one of those people. He gives us 3 examples of what to do when we're faced with adversity in our lives. Now granted, most of us, I pray, will never face the fear of an invading army. But we all go through adversity in our lives. Some minor, some major. The first thing he did was that he sought advice. He made a plan, and he got to work. In 2 Chronicles 32:3 says, he consulted with his officials and military staff about blocking off the water from the springs outside the city, and they helped him. That's the Gihon Spring, the only area, the only freshwater source around Jerusalem, the Gihon Spring. And so he blocked that off, creating Hezekiah's tunnel, which directed the water to flow underneath the city to the Pool of Siloam. And that, and you know about the Pool of Siloam from the New Testament. That's where Jesus healed the blind man. That's where a lot of healing happened. And so that's where they blocked off the water and they redirected it in. In 2 Chronicles chapter 32, 5 and 6, then he worked hard repairing all the broken sections of the wall and building towers on it. He built another wall outside of that one and reinforced the terrace of the city of David. He also made a large number of weapons and shields. And he appointed military officers over the people. So he didn't just sit back wringing his hands. He actually did something. He said, okay, what can I do? What is within my power to accomplish? And that's what we're asking you all in regard to the financial concerns of the church. What is it within your power to do? First he consulted. He got good advice. When we face adversity in life, whatever the adversity, we have to get good counsel. We have to get good counsel. A lot of times we wait too late to get counsel, don't we? If we could just ask somebody before we did something, then that might, we might save ourselves a lot of grief that way, but we don't. Sometimes it's like, well, okay, I know I need help now because I can't do anything else, so I've got to call Dad for bail money, but you have no choice. So we seek good advice. You have to have good people in your life that you can get good counsel from. People that you can trust that aren't going to tell you what you need to hear or what you want to hear, but what you need to hear. Right? Because sometimes we just like to have that yes man standing there going, yeah, that's the coolest thing ever. That's the coolest thing ever. That's why, that's why I love the counsel my wife gives me, because she's never like that. Honey, it would be a great idea if I bought a motorcycle. No, it wouldn't. Just no. But seriously though, she does give me good counsel in that, because I'm the crazy dreamer guy, and she's the one who pulls me back and says, no, that's not really practical. Let's talk about this. So we get good counsel. The second thing is he made a plan. He assessed what was broken and needed fixed, and he went about it. He didn't say, okay, well, yeah, the walls are broken, but you know what we really need to do is we really need to develop a helicopter force. Let's do this. He didn't go out here. He said immediately, what can I fix? The walls are broken, let's fix them. We can improve the defenses of the city simply by repairing what's broken and building onto that. We'll build up towers so we can see further. We can shoot our arrows further than they can because we have the high ground. Anybody with military background knows you want the high ground. So he said, let's repair what needs fixing, and we're going to improve that then. Once it's repaired, we can improve upon it. And then what did he do? Then he got other people to help him. He didn't just go out there and say, okay, well, here I got my pick and my hammer, I'm going to start building. He got people to help him. He got people that they understood that helping King Hezekiah was helping themselves. That he was able to spread the vision out there, and they understood it, and they caught it, and they caught onto it, and they adapted that to be in their best benefit, and they worked with him. So he worked hard repairing all of those broken sections, and building towers on it. Then he built another wall outside of that. Now we're not talking, Murph and I put up a chain link fence around my backyard in a day. Well, 2 days, 2 days, because we had to set the posts and let that set up, the concrete set up, and then we put the fence up. But the fence, putting the fence on was nothing. We're not talking about that kind of fence. We're not talking about that. We're talking about huge walls with huge stones, and they're amazing. Those stones are huge. One person can't move them, and they are amazing to see that. And there's some of them are still there today. So he did that. He built another wall outside of that one and reinforced everything. He made large numbers of weapons and shields. You can't fight a battle without weapons. You need to defend yourself. So they built the shields, they built the weapons, and he stockpiled them. And then he appointed military officers over the people, because he knew that he couldn't do it himself. He had to get people who were able to lead these people who were not warriors in battle. He knew that, when it came to defending the city, everybody had to have an active role in it. So he had to get military officers that he could trust, that were competent individuals who caught the vision of what he was trying to do and set them in place that they could lead the people. He didn't sit idly by and wait for something miraculous to save him and his city. He got to work. Well, here's one of the things, go to the next slide. Here's one of the things that he accomplished. I talked about the Hezekiah's tunnel. And this is, you can see the entrance over here at the Gihon Springs. And it's not a straight tunnel. That's the amazing thing about this. You see how it curves? It's the blue line here on sort of in the cut of the city. And that's not what the city looks like. It's just a cut away so you can actually see the tunnel. So this blue line there goes through, and that's the tunnel. Go ahead to the next slide. Yeah, there you go. And that's this is the entrance to Hezekiah's tunnel. And yes, it is that spooky, and yes, it is that dark, and there's no lighting down there, so you have to have a light of some kind. Go ahead to the next one.
Did you light a torch?
No, I had one of those little head things on that has a light. That's the entryway there. When you walk in, you're like, oh, this isn't going to be so bad, and then it goes way down. And you can see, this is one of the guys in our group, you can see how far up the water went, and it's moving water. It's not just stagnant. So go ahead to the next one. There I am. You can see that I actually came out. I'm kind of like, oh my gosh, I just walked 1,750 feet underground, and it was really narrow. And you can see the water line on my pants, how high the water did get at times.
Is that just water?
Most of the intelligent people go in wearing bathing suits. I did not. Yeah, thanks, Lynn. But it was amazing. You come out, and behind me is the tunnel, but you come out at the Pool of Siloam, and it's really cool because some of that still exists. Not all of it, because it was, Nice hat. Yeah, that was my Israel hat because it was really, really hot, and this ginger did not want to fry. So yeah, that was an interesting. And there's parts of the tunnel that, as I'm going through like this, my shoulders and my arms were rubbing the sides, and I had to go through at times like this. There was other times when I could have. Who's the tallest person here? Pete, you're probably close. I could have stood on Pete's shoulders and walked through and not touched anything. And I said, well, now you're just showing off. Because it's all hand-carved. It's all hand-carved. And there's a spot when you get in one of these places, as you're going through the tunnel, there's a spot where there's an inscription in ancient Hebrew that says, today we heard the hammers, and they started from two opposite sides. Can you go back to the cutaway of the city? Okay, now think about it. They started at two opposite sides and met in the middle. Without GPS, without any modern technology, the way that they did it was soundings from above. That's how they did it. Which, ask me to explain it? No. I don't know, but they did that. And that's an amazing, amazing feat of engineering, that they did that and that they met. And when they met, they were, on one side they've got the picks and they're hitting. On the other side, their picks are hitting. And when the wall broke through, the water rushed through. There's a 0.6% grade that kind of goes down. 6% over the whole tunnel, and that's why the water flows. And it's still used as one of the main water sources of the city of Jerusalem today. So it's an amazing thing that he did. So it's not just, let's sit back and wait to see what happens. So, okay, go ahead. Next, there we go. Next one. There we go, thank you. Get that one out of there. So, okay. All right, so somebody give me something to throw at her. Okay, so the next thing that he did is to encourage people through faith in God. He didn't say, have faith in me, people. We're doing great civic works. Look at all the good things that we have done. Look at all the good things that I am accomplishing. He didn't do that. In 2 Chronicles 32, 6 through 9, he appointed military officers over the people and assembled them before him in the square of the city gate and encouraged them with these words, be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid or discouraged because the king of Assyria and the vast army with him, for there is a greater power with us than with him. With him is only the arm of flesh, but with us is the Lord our God to help us and to fight our battles. And the people gained confidence from what Hezekiah the king of Judah said. Have you ever noticed the reaction when a leader makes a speech during a time of crisis? It can either encourage the masses or suck the life out of them. When a good leader assesses the situation and conveys a sense of hope, the people are encouraged and willing to do almost anything to follow that leader's direction. Now, I don't know if there's anyone here, maybe one or two of us, that were old enough to remember on December 8th, 1941, how the feeling of the country was. We felt like we were sucker punched. We felt like there was, oh my gosh, look at all this loss of life, look at all this loss of naval power, what are we going to do? How is that, how can we overcome this? But President Roosevelt's speech to Congress galvanized the American public and brought them from isolationism into understanding why we needed to be involved in World War II. Most of us do remember September 11th. President Bush summed up how we were feeling as a nation and gave us hope that there would be a tomorrow and that we would make it through the troubled days ahead as a nation. Well, King Hezekiah did the same thing. His people needed encouraging. And the best encouragement he could give them was not rely on my military might or rely on me as a leader. It was simply rely on God. We have God on our side. He would never fail us. That's what we need to remember. No matter what adversity we're facing, we should be encouraged through our faith. Because faith is easy when times are good. Faith is simple. To say, I'm a Christian. Well, how's everything going for you? Great. My health is good. My marriage is good. My job is good. My car's running fine. My kids listen to me. When all of those things, said no, never. But well, when that's happening, it's easy to say, I have faith in God. I trust in God. It's all good. Right? But when things are bad, when any one of those things that I just mentioned, when the marriage isn't so good, when the job isn't so good, when your health isn't so good, all of those things, when those things aren't right, that's when faith is the most important. That's when the metal meets the road. That's when you have to understand what you believe in, why you believe in, and who you believe in. And understand that God will never fail you no matter what. Your prayers might not get answered in the way you want, but they will get answered in the best way. You may not understand that at the time. I said this at Keontae's funeral a couple weeks ago. I said, I used the passage from Romans chapter 8 that said, God works for the good in all things and for those who are called according to His purpose. I said, I have a hard time with that at his funeral. Because how is this good? This is not good in the way I see it, the way that his family sees it, his friends see it. It affects so many people here in Finland. This is not good. How can this be good? I don't know, is the answer I can give you. But I do know this. I trust in God to make any kind of good come from it. You know, and I don't know what that... I told his mom, I said, I don't know what the blessing will be for you. But I do believe that there will be a blessing. I don't know what it is, when it'll come, how it'll come, but it's going to come. Because God didn't make this happen. God saw it happen, but He didn't make it happen. He could have stopped it. We wanted Him to stop it, but He didn't. So I have to trust in God that some good is going to come from it. So we have to trust in who we believe in. So we need to understand that we need to get advice, make a plan, and then get to work. And we also need to trust in our faith, have faith in God, and learn to have that trust in God and rely on that. And the third thing that Hezekiah teaches us is prayer, fervent prayer. In 2 Chronicles 32:20, King Hezekiah and the prophet Isaiah, son of Amos, cried out in prayer to heaven about this. After the king of Assyria, this vast army, and we're talking over 200,000 men with him. That's a pretty big army. And surrounding the city of Jerusalem, which is not all that big. And you're thinking maybe, I would say at the time, maybe 20, 30,000 people inside the city of Jerusalem. Maybe on a good day, on Sabbath, when all the Jews came in to go to the temple. Maybe 30,000. So they're outnumbered several to one. You know, there's a lot more of the Assyrians than there are of the Jews. What did Hezekiah and Amos do after the ridiculing of God by Sennacherib, the king? They cried out in prayer. That's a fervent prayer. That's a cry of the heart. Ah! God, I'm facing this. Ah! Help me. You know, it doesn't say exactly in this passage what they prayed. I'll get to his prayer in a minute. But it's, he cried out, they both cried out in prayer. The faithful, we know Isaiah, faithful prophet of God. He wrote so much about the Messiah, about Jesus, that we can learn in the book of Isaiah. And then King Hezekiah, they both cried out to God about this situation. Paul tells us in Philippians 4:6, do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation, by prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, present your requests to God. So no matter what it is that's happening, don't be anxious. Present it to God with thanksgiving, because you're bringing it to the guy who can take care of it. If you come to me and say, Pastor Jim, I need some help with the situation, I might be able to help you. Maybe. If you take it to God, He will be able to help you. I guarantee it. Every single time, every single situation, God can handle it. I can't do that. I don't have that power. Paul says again in 2 Thessalonians 5:16-18, rejoice always, pray without ceasing, in everything give thanks, for this is God's will for you in Christ Jesus. We have to pray without ceasing. When it comes to whatever adversity we're facing, pray. So the king and the prophet, they cried out in prayer. How cool is that? When was the last time you recall a world leader actually praying? Not calling for the people to pray, because I've seen that a lot. World leaders calling on their followers to pray, but actually witness them pray. Now I'm not saying none of them do that privately, but imagine what hope that would give to the people if they actually saw their leaders doing that. That would be huge. Well, here, this is concerning Hezekiah's prayer to God and his response to that prayer. This is from 2 Kings chapter 19, and this is pretty cool what Hezekiah prayed. So Hezekiah took the letter from the hand of the messengers and read it. And he went up to the house of the Lord. Go ahead to the next one. There you go. This is an actual picture of it. No, I'm kidding. So Hezekiah prayed before the Lord after he had spread out the letter from the king. O Lord, the God of Israel, who are enthroned above the cherubim. You are God, you alone, of all the kingdoms of the earth. You have made heaven and earth. Incline your ear, O Lord, and hear. Open your eyes, O Lord, and see. And listen to the words of Sennacherib, which he has sent to reproach the living God. Truly, O Lord, the kings of Assyria have devastated the nations and their lands, and have cast their gods into the fire, for they were not gods, but the work of men's hands, wood and stone. So they have destroyed them. Now, O Lord our God, I pray to deliver us from his hand, and all the kingdoms of the earth may know that you alone, O Lord, are God. And then Isaiah the son of Amos sent to Hezekiah, saying, Thus says the Lord, the God of Israel, because you prayed to me about Sennacherib, the king of Assyria, I have heard you. Wow. That's awesome. Wouldn't that be great if we had Isaiah that would just come along and say, you know, we pray and God sends a prophet to us. Oh, by the way, God heard your prayer and is answering. Good to go. You know, that would be awesome. I would love to have that kind of confirmation in my life. And then, after he prayed this wonderful prayer, that beautiful prayer, he didn't cry and whine about it. He just said, God, here it is, Lord. Here it is. This is what this guy's saying about you. I know it ain't true. Show up. And everybody else will know it ain't true. And then it happened that night that the angel of the Lord went out and struck down 185,000 in the camp of the Assyrians. And when the men rose early in the morning, behold, all of them were dead. So Sennacherib, the king of Assyria, departed and returned home and lived in Nineveh. And it came as he was worshiping in the house of Nisroch, his god, that his sons killed him with the sword, and they escaped into the land of Ararat. And his son became king in his place. Who's God, man? You know, which God are you worshiping? Oh, sorry, he ain't gonna save you. The living God of Israel, our God, saved them. Saved King Hezekiah. He had all of those things that were working for him. He sought good advice. A wise person knows when they need advice, and they seek it. And he encouraged people by their common faith in God. And then he prayed fervently. If you're facing a situation, pray. Pray about it. I encourage you. I'm not much of a journaler. I don't do that. I just don't have the patience for it. But I know people who do and who really like that. I encourage you. This is one area that I do journal. Is I have a little notebook that nothing special about it. Just a 17-cent notebook from Walmart. But I write down the prayers. Not everything that I say, but I write down who I'm praying for, what I'm praying for. If somebody says, hey, will you pray for me, about this or that? Yeah, it goes in the book. And when and if, one of the frustrating things is, as a pastor, a lot of people ask me to pray for them, but they never tell me what happens. Hey, pray for me, I'm wanting to have surgery, and I don't hear from them ever again. I'm like, well, they go to heaven? No, what's up? Are they still there? And then I'll see they're active on Facebook, so I'm like, okay, they made it through surgery. So I'll contact them like months later, hey, how did that surgery go? Oh, it was cool. Thanks for the prayers. Okay, cool, thanks for letting me know. But when I find out what happens, I write that down in the book too. Prayers answered. Surgery successful. So I do that so I have confirmation, but then I can show people when they say, well, why do you believe in God? That's just a crutch for weak people to use. I'm like, well, I got answered prayers to back up, my faith. What do you got? I can show them the prayers that I've said or who I've prayed for and how God's answered them. So I encourage you, if you wonder about, does God answer prayers? Is God even listening? Write it down and see how he does. Test it. It's okay to test God. He even says that in his word. Test him and see. He will come through for you. And so I encourage you to do that in your prayer life. Write down the things that you're praying for or who you're praying for, and see how God answers those. But in your time of adversity, such a time as this, As we're looking for a new sound technician, oh, I love you, Lynn. I'll get you back Saturday. Guess who's going to get haggis on Saturday?
Guess who's
one way
cooking?
or another, she'll get haggis. But no, seriously, when you're facing adversity, you have to seek good counsel. You have to, get somebody to come alongside you. Do you have one of those people in your life that you can say, "Hey, I just need to vent to you for a moment"? If you don't seek them out, find somebody that you can trust, that you can vent to about whatever it is that you're going through. Well, yes, but it's helpful when you're seeking counsel to have somebody to do that with you, because not only do you have somebody physically there that you can get good counsel from, but you can also have somebody else praying for you. And that's a good thing. So you get sound counsel, and you can get somebody else praying for you. If you don't have one of those people, seek out one of those people. If you're not one of those people, try to become one of those people. Because it always is helpful when you remember what I said about the Sea of Galilee and the Dead Sea. The only difference is they're fed by the same tributary, but the only difference is the Dead Sea does not have an outlet. It only takes, it does not give. So be like the Sea of Galilee. Take her and give her. Have that water flowing through you, and then you'll truly have life. So find somebody that can pour into you, but find somebody that you can pour into. That's an important thing. Giving good advice, getting good advice, setting about a plan, and then doing it. Don't just wring your hands in frustration. Do something about it. Be encouraged be an encourager. Do you know any of those people? I know that nobody here is like that, but do you know is somebody in your life that's just so negative, that everything is the worst? It's like, come on. I'm a Browns fan, so I'm an eternal optimist, right? I still believe they're going to the Super Bowl this year, but hey, that's faith. That's faith right there. But you don't want to be one of those people who instantly can suck defeat from the jaws of victory. Who just can come into a situation and deflate you. The kind of person who goes to a little kid's birthday party and pops the balloons. You don't want to be like that. You want to be the person who is, "Oh man, I'm going through such a tough time. I am so glad that Dean is here, because Dean always lifts me up. Dean always, helps me out. He's always the face of encouragement. And even though my situation isn't going to change immediately just because Dean walked in the room, I feel better about it. So be one of those people. Be an encourager. Remind people of, or your brothers and sisters in Christ, remind them when they're going through tough times of their faith in God. Remind them that God has done this before and He will do this again. That the situation they're going through may be bleak for them, but God has gotten better people out of worse. God will deliver them as well. And then pray. Pray. I can't, a lot of pastors always talk about, the importance of prayer life. But it really is something that you have to have, an active prayer life. If you don't have an active prayer life, you're missing out on so much. And it's so hard to explain why that's important if you don't understand, but you've got to try it and see. Okay, try it and see. God will come through for you in that regard if you do that. So let us pray. Dear Heavenly Father, Lord, I thank you for Hezekiah. I thank you for his faith. I thank you for the fact that he gives us these examples of what to do when we're facing a time of trial. Granted, Lord, we may never face an Assyrian army, but Lord, it sometimes feels like we're facing an army. It sometimes feels like we are facing an overwhelming force set against us that is seeking to destroy us. We see on every side that in our society today, there are people who are more than willing to ridicule you and us for our faith in you. Lord, but we know that you are greater than them. We know that you are God, that you are sitting on the throne, that there's nothing, absolutely nothing, that you can't accomplish. So Lord, I thank you. I thank you for being the God that we can count on, the living God, the Holy One of Israel. And Lord, I thank you for that. I pray that you will help us in our times of struggle, help us to see what you want us to do, help us to set that plan in motion and then to just do it, get to work, like Hezekiah had done. Lord, that he didn't just sit back and wait for you to do the work for him. He actually went out and started doing the work that you laid before him. And I appreciate that, Lord. I thank you, and I pray that you would just find us willing and able to do that as well. I pray this in your Son's name. Amen.
Join us as we continue our worship and giving. Now's your chance to put in the basket your yellow card with all of your information, shoe size, eye color, the whole